The diplomatic solution. The massive space station Meridian Prime floated quietly in the darkness between three star systems. Its metal walls held the most important meeting in galactic history. Inside the main council chamber, representatives from dozens of alien species sat around a circular table that could fit a small spaceship. Ambassador Lee Hyun walked slowly to his seat. His dark suit looked plain compared to the colorful robes and strange armor worn by the other delegates. The human diplomat carried only a simple data pad and a cup of coffee that had gone cold hours ago. At the center of the room stood a large holographic display showing star maps marked with red zones. These were the territories that the Velkari Empire had conquered in the past year. Each red dot represented millions of enslaved beings from weaker species who could not defend themselves. Chancellor Nira of the Zephyrian people rose from her crystal chair. Her body looked like living diamond, reflecting the chamber lights in rainbow patterns. When she spoke, her voice rang like musical bells. "The Velkari Empire has taken 12 systems in the past cycle," she announced. "They have enslaved the entire Brindar species and destroyed the peaceful Korvani colonies. We cannot allow this to continue." Across the table, the insectoid Chitrak delegate clicked his mandibles together in anger. His 6 eyes focused on the star map as he spoke in his buzzing voice. "The humans must join our military coalition. We need their ships and weapons to stop General Vorak before he takes more worlds." The amphibious Morlach representative slapped his webbed hand on the table. His green skin glistened under the lights as he croaked his displeasure. "Every day we wait, more innocents die. The Velkari grow stronger while we talk and talk." Captain Park Ji-won sat in the observer section behind Ambassador Lee. She watched the proceedings through careful eyes. As commander of the human diplomatic vessel Aurora, she had seen many such meetings. Her tactical officer, Lieutenant Kim Dae-ho, sat beside her, quietly taking notes on his tablet. "The human fleet is among the strongest in known space," continued Chancellor Nira. "Your technology and ships could turn the tide of war. Why do your people hesitate to act?" Ambassador Lee stood slowly. He was a tall man with graying hair and kind eyes that had seen too much of the galaxy's pain. When he spoke, his voice was calm and steady. "Chancellor Nira, honored delegates, humanity appreciates your concern for galactic peace. We share your desire to protect innocent lives. However, we believe there may be another way to solve this crisis." The chamber erupted in surprised voices. Several aliens spoke at once in their native languages, creating a chaos of sounds. The Chitrak delegates' buzzing grew louder while the Morlach croaked in disbelief. Lee Hyun raised his hand for silence. "We propose a comprehensive cultural exchange program with the Velkari Empire. Combined with targeted economic sanctions, this could create pressure for peaceful change without the massive loss of life that war would bring." The silence that followed was deafening. Chancellor Nira's crystal form seemed to dim as she processed this unexpected proposal. Other delegates stared at the human ambassador as if he had suggested they all hold hands and sing songs. The quiet was broken by a deep, rumbling laugh. The central holographic display flickered and changed, showing the fearsome face of General Thane Vorak himself. The Velkari leader was a massive being with gray skin like stone and eyes that glowed red with inner fire. Battle scars covered his face and neck, telling the story of countless victories. "Cultural exchange," General Vorak repeated, his voice dripping with amusement. "Economic sanctions. The humans want to defeat the mighty Velkari Empire with trade agreements and poetry readings." His laughter filled the chamber, echoing off the walls. "Little diplomat, your species interests me. You have ships that could challenge mine, weapons that could threaten my fleets, yet you speak of culture and economics. Are humans truly so weak, or are you simply fools?" Ambassador Lee met the general's glowing eyes without flinching. "General Vorak, we believe that lasting peace can only come through understanding. Military victory creates only temporary silence. True peace requires that former enemies choose to become friends. Understanding." Vorak spat the word like a curse. "I understand perfectly, human. The strong take what they want. The weak serve or die. This is the only law that matters in the universe. Your soft words will not save the worlds I claim next." The general leaned forward in his holographic form. "I give your Galactic Council 1 full cycle to reconsider. Join the coalition against me, or watch as I turn my attention to your precious human colonies. Let us see how well your cultural exchanges work against plasma bombardment." The hologram disappeared, leaving the chamber in tense silence. Several delegates immediately began arguing among themselves. The Chitrak buzzed angrily about human cowardice while the Morlack croaked about the folly of peaceful solutions. Captain Park watched her ambassador carefully. Li Hyun showed no emotion as the criticism washed over him, but she could see the small signs of stress in his posture. A slight tension in his shoulders, the way he gripped his datapad just a little too tightly. Lieutenant Kim leaned close to his captain. "Orders from Earth Command just came through the encrypted channel," he whispered. "Priority Alpha clearance required." Park nodded and quietly stood. As she and Kim left the chamber, she could hear Chancellor Nira calling for order while delegates continued to argue about humanity's strange reluctance to fight. In the Aurora's secure communications room, Captain Park entered her command codes. The screen displayed a single line of text. "Report to Dr. Choi Miran immediately. Project Prometheus authorization confirmed." Kim read the message over her shoulder. His face went pale as he recognized the code name. "Captain, Project Prometheus is supposed to be theoretical only. If they are activating it now, then the situation is more serious than anyone in that chamber realizes." Park finished quietly. She deleted the message and turned to face her officer. "Kim, prepare the ship for immediate departure, and send a coded message to Ambassador Lee. Tell him the Aurora has developed a minor technical issue that requires our return to the human sector." As they prepared to leave Meridian Prime, Captain Park looked out at the stars through her ship's viewing port. Somewhere out there, General Vorak was planning his next move. The Galactic Council thought humans were weak because they avoided war. If only they knew the truth. Dr. Choi Moran was waiting for them with files marked with the highest security classifications. Files that contained the real reason why humanity desperately tried to solve every conflict with words instead of weapons. Files that held the terrifying secret of what humans became when they finally stopped talking and started fighting. The truth that could save the galaxy, or doom it forever. The historical wait doctor, Choi Miran, stood in the secure briefing room aboard the Human Research Station Discovery. The walls were lined with screens showing data that few beings in the galaxy had ever seen. Captain Park Ji-won and Lieutenant Kim Dae-ho sat at the metal table, waiting to learn why Project Prometheus had been activated. "What you are about to see must never leave this room," Dr. Choi began. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her voice carried the weight of terrible knowledge. This information could change how every species in the galaxy views humanity. She pressed a button on the control panel. The screens came alive with images from Earth's history. Battlefields covered with bodies, cities burning, weapons that could destroy entire continents. "Most species believe humans are peaceful because we avoid war," Dr. Choi continued. "They think we are weak or afraid. They do not understand the truth. We avoid war because we are too good at it." The first screen showed a timeline of human history. Red marks covered almost every year, indicating wars, conflicts, and battles. Captain Park stared at the display in shock. She had studied history, but seeing it presented this way was overwhelming. "In 10,000 years of recorded human history, we have been completely at peace for only 268 years total," Dr. Choi explained. "While other species developed through cooperation or adaptation to their environment, humans evolved through constant warfare." Professor Yoon Taek appeared on the main screen via video link from Earth. He was an elderly man with kind eyes that held deep sadness. Behind him, shelves of ancient books and historical artifacts filled his office. "Captain Park, what I am about to show you has been classified for over a century," Professor Yoon said. "When humans first reached the stars and met other species, we discovered something disturbing about ourselves." The screens changed to show comparative studies between human and alien civilizations. Charts and graphs displayed military capabilities, strategic thinking, and combat effectiveness across different species. "Every alien species we have encountered shows the same pattern," the professor continued. "They develop military capabilities for defense. They fight when necessary but prefer peaceful solutions. Warfare for them is a last resort that they endure until they can return to peace." He paused, his expression growing more serious. "Humans are different. We do not just fight wars. We perfect them. We innovate in combat. We become more effective the longer a conflict continues. Other species see war as a terrible interruption of normal life. For humans, war brings out abilities that lie hidden during peacetime." Commander Kang Soo-young joined the briefing from the Human Historical Research Division. She was a middle-aged woman with short black hair and the bearing of a career military officer. Her uniform carried ribbons that spoke of years of service in peaceful times. "We have studied human military personnel for generations," Commander Kang reported. "The results are consistent and troubling. When humans engage in warfare, several things happen that do not occur in other species." The screen showed brain scans and psychological profiles. Human tactical thinking improves during combat situations. Unit cooperation becomes stronger under pressure. Strategic planning abilities actually increase when facing existential threats. Most disturbing of all, humans show measurable satisfaction from successful military operations. Captain Park felt a chill run down her spine. "Are you saying humans enjoy war?" "Not exactly," Dr. Choi answered. "Humans hate the death and destruction that war brings. But the mental and physical challenges of warfare activate something deep in human psychology. We become smarter, faster, more creative when fighting for survival." Professor Yoon spoke again from his office. "We call it the escalation pattern. Other species fight to achieve specific goals, then stop. Humans fight to achieve goals, then continue fighting to achieve better goals. A human war rarely stays at its original scope." The screen showed examples from human history, small conflicts that grew into world wars, local disputes that became global struggles, regional tensions that became centuries of bloodshed. The most concerning discovery came from studying human innovation during wartime, Commander Kang continued. Humans develop new technologies faster during conflicts. They create more effective weapons, better tactics, superior strategies. War makes humans more dangerous not just to their enemies but to everyone. Dr. Choi moved to stand directly in front of the two officers. "This brings us to the threshold studies. We discovered that human military effectiveness follows a predictable pattern. The greater the perceived threat to humanity, the more dangerous humans become." A new chart appeared showing escalation levels. At the bottom were small conflicts with limited scope. At the top were scenarios marked with warnings in multiple languages. Level 1 threats produce standard military responses, Dr. Choi explained. Level 2 threats result in improved tactics and weapons. Level 3 threats cause humans to develop entirely new forms of warfare. She pointed to the top of the chart. Level 4 and 5 threats represent existential danger to human civilization. Historical analysis suggests that humans facing such threats undergo rapid psychological and cultural changes. They stop thinking like individuals and start thinking like a single organism focused on survival. Lieutenant Kim spoke for the first time since the briefing began. "What happens at Level 5? The room fell silent. Professor Yoon answered quietly from the screen. "Level 5 has never occurred in human history. Our models suggest that humans facing complete extinction would become something we might not recognize as the same species." Dr. Choi returned to her control panel. "This is why humanity chooses diplomacy over warfare. Not because we are weak, but because we know what we become when we fight. Every human leader for the past century has been briefed on these studies. The Prometheus Project was created to monitor human psychological states during conflicts," she continued. "We watch for signs that humanity might be approaching higher threat levels. If we cross certain thresholds, protocols exist to prevent escalation." Captain Park looked at the data surrounding her. "And General Vorak's threats? What level do they represent?" Dr. Choi's expression grew grim. "Currently Level 2 approaching Level 3. If he attacks human colonies with significant casualties, we could reach Level 4 within days. The galaxy has never seen humans at war because we have worked very hard to prevent it," Commander Kang added. "But if we are forced to fight, the other species will learn why we tried so desperately to avoid that outcome." The briefing room lights dimmed as Dr. Choi prepared to show them the most classified files in human space. Files that contained detailed analysis of what would happen if humanity ever stopped holding back and started fighting the way their evolution had designed them to fight. The Velkari Escalation General Thane Vorak stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Iron Dominion. Through the massive viewing windows, he could see his battle fleet preparing for the next phase of his campaign. 300 warships filled the space around him, their hulls bristling with weapons designed to break planets and crush civilizations. "Admiral Korex, report on human colony defenses," Vorak commanded. His voice echoed through the bridge as his officers worked at their stations. The Velkari Admiral, a scarred veteran of dozens of conquests, stepped forward with a data tablet. "General, our scouts have identified 3 primary targets. New Busan has a population of 12 million with minimal orbital defenses. Terra Nova houses 8 million colonists and a small defense fleet. The mining station Sejong has only 50,000 workers but contains valuable resources. Orcs studied the tactical displays. Intelligence reports showed that human colonies were lightly defended compared to other species. Most had only basic shields and a few patrol ships. It seemed the humans truly believed their diplomatic words could protect them from plasma fire. Excellent. We will strike all three simultaneously, Vorak decided. But remember, we must stay within the boundaries of galactic law. These will be preventive defense actions against potential future human aggression. His officers nodded in understanding. The Velkari had perfected the art of legal warfare. They attacked first but always claimed they were defending themselves from future threats. The Galactic Council's lawyers could debate the details while Velkari forces completed their objectives. On the colony world New Busan, researcher Bayek Minsuk was working in his laboratory when the alert sirens began wailing. Through his window, he could see families running toward the underground shelters that every human colony maintained. His wife Baek Jihi was at the school, helping evacuate children to safety. Colony Defense Coordinator Colonel Lim Jae-won received the first reports of approaching Velkari ships. His command center filled with the sounds of urgent communications as defensive systems came online. The colony had weapons capable of fighting back, but his orders were clear: minimum engagement protocols only. Colonel, we have 37 Velkari warships approaching from 3 vectors, reported his tactical officer. They will be in firing range in 18 minutes. Colonel Lim stared at his display screens. His orbital defense platforms could damage or destroy many of those ships. His ground-based missile systems could make the Velkari pay a heavy price for their attack. But his orders were to avoid escalation at all costs. All platforms to defensive posture only, he commanded. Fire only if directly targeted. All civilian shelters to maximum protection. Sergeant Oh Hyun-woo watched the approaching enemy ships through his sensor scope. He had served in the Colony Defense Force for 8 years, training for this exact moment. His weapons were ready, his team was prepared, but he could only watch as enemy ships moved into attack positions. The first Velkari bombardment began at exactly 1400 hours local time. Energy beams and explosive projectiles rained down on New Busan's outer settlements. The attacks were precisely calculated to destroy infrastructure while creating maximum psychological impact on the civilian population. In the underground shelters, families huddled together as the ground shook from explosions above. Baek Ji-hye held her students close, telling them stories to distract from the sounds of war. Her husband had reached the shelter after ensuring his laboratory's dangerous materials were safely contained. Similar scenes played out on Terra Nova and at Sejong Station. Velkari forces attacked with methodical precision, targeting power plants, communication arrays, and transportation hubs. The goal was not complete destruction, but the creation of fear and helplessness. On Terra Nova, the colony's small defense fleet engaged the attackers according to minimal response protocols. Captain Song Mi-jong's ships fought bravely but were outnumbered 10-1. Her forces managed to damage several Velkari vessels before being forced to retreat to avoid total destruction. At Sejong Station, Station Chief Park Won-ho coordinated the evacuation of non-essential personnel while keeping critical mining operations online. The station's defensive turrets fired only when Velkari ships came within the legally defined self-defense perimeter. The attacks continued for 6 hours. When they ended, hundreds of humans were dead and thousands more injured. Critical infrastructure lay in ruins. The psychological impact was exactly what General Vorak had intended. News of the attacks reached the Galactic Council within hours. Chancellor Nira called an emergency session, while Ambassador Lee Hyun received detailed casualty reports from all 3 colonies. The images of destruction were broadcast across the galaxy, showing the price of Velkari aggression. In the council chamber, delegates responded with expressions of sympathy and outrage. The Chitrak representative buzzed angrily about Velkari violations of civilized conduct. The Morlach delegate croaked demands for immediate retaliation. "This is exactly what we warned would happen," Chancellor Nira declared. "General Vorak has shown his true intentions. The time for diplomatic solutions has passed." Ambassador Lee stood slowly to address the council. His face showed the strain of the past hours, but his voice remained calm. The attacks on human colonies are tragic and unacceptable. However, humanity continues to believe that military escalation will only lead to greater suffering for all species. The chamber erupted in disbelief. Several delegates spoke at once, their voices mixing into a cacophony of outrage and confusion. How could humans continue to seek peace after being directly attacked? Ambassador, your people are dying while you speak of diplomatic solutions, Chancellor Nera said. How many more colonies must burn before humanity accepts the reality of war? What the Galactic Council did not know was that every human attack had triggered automatic response protocols throughout human space. Deep beneath the surface of Earth, in facilities hidden throughout human territory, ancient systems were coming online for the first time in over a century. Fleet Admiral Song Mikyung sat in the secure command center buried beneath the Himalayan mountains. Around her, displays showed the real-time status of human military capabilities that no alien species knew existed, ships that were listed as destroyed decades ago, weapons that were officially theoretical, soldiers who had been training in secret for generations. Admiral, we have confirmation that the Prometheus threshold has been crossed, reported Colonel Han Youngmin. Casualty numbers and attack patterns match Level 3 escalation triggers. Admiral Song studied the displays showing human colonies under attack. Every instinct developed over centuries of human warfare demanded immediate and overwhelming retaliation. But she also knew what that retaliation would mean for the galaxy. Activate Contingency 7, she ordered quietly. Begin Phase 1 preparations for Prometheus implementation. And may God forgive us for what we are about to become. Throughout human space, dormant military installations received coded signals. Ships began emerging from hidden storage facilities. Weapons that had never been tested in actual combat started their activation sequences. And for the first time in 200 years, humanity began to remember what they had been before they chose to be better. General Vorak had achieved his tactical objectives. The human colonies were crippled, their defenses broken, their civilians terrorized, but in doing so, he had awakened something that the galaxy had never seen before, something that humanity had spent centuries trying to keep buried. The tipping point, the massive world of New Sol hung in space like a blue jewel, home to 200 million human souls. It was the crown of human civilization beyond Earth, with gleaming cities that stretched from ocean to ocean and orbital platforms that touched the stars. For General Vorak, it represented the perfect target to break human resistance once and for all. Admiral Cho Sunwoo stood on the command deck of Orbital Defense Station Prime, watching the largest Valkyrie fleet ever assembled approach his world. 500 warships moved in perfect formation, their weapons already charging for the attack that would change galactic history forever. Admiral, we have confirmation of hostile intent, reported his tactical officer. Enemy fleet is powering weapons and targeting our civilian infrastructure. Admiral Cho looked at the engagement protocols displayed on his screen. Even now, facing the destruction of the most important human world beyond Earth, his orders remained the same. Minimal defensive response only. He was authorized to protect the orbital stations, but not to pursue retreating enemy ships or target Valkyrie vessels unless they directly threatened his platforms. All stations to defensive posture, he commanded. Protect civilian evacuation routes. Engage only direct threats to defense installations. On the planet's surface, Director Moon Hagen coordinated the largest civilian evacuation in human history. Millions of people streamed toward underground shelters and emergency transport ships. The evacuation had been planned and practiced for decades, but no simulation had prepared them for an attack of this magnitude. The first Valkyrie bombardment began at dawn over New Sol's capital city. Energy weapons designed to crack asteroids tore through buildings that had stood for centuries. Plasma bombardment turned parks and schools into fields of molten glass. The beautiful orbital elevator that connected the planet to space collapsed in flames, taking thousands of lives with it. Dr. An Ji-hoon worked desperately in the city's main hospital as wounded civilians poured in faster than his medical teams could treat them. The building shook with each enemy impact while he tried to save lives with equipment that was never designed for wartime trauma surgery. The Valkyrie attack was broadcast live throughout the galaxy. Other species watched in horror as human cities burned and civilians died. But what shocked them more was the continued restraint of human military forces. Despite having orbital weapons platforms capable of devastating the Valkyrie fleet, Human defenders fired only when directly attacked. General Vorak himself led the ground assault on New Seoul's capital. His troops moved through the burning streets with ruthless efficiency, targeting evacuation centers and medical facilities. The goal was not military victory, but the complete breaking of human morale through the systematic destruction of everything humans held dear. The turning point came when Valkyrie forces surrounded the city's largest civilian shelter, where over 50,000 non-combatants had taken refuge. Among them were thousands of children from the city's schools, elderly citizens from care facilities, and wounded people from the hospitals. Major Shin Young-ho commanded the shelter's defense force. He had served in the human military for 15 years, all during peacetime. His weapons were locked in defensive mode according to standard protocols. He could protect the shelter's immediate perimeter but could not pursue attackers or use offensive capabilities against enemy forces. Major, Valkyrie troops are setting up bombardment positions around the shelter, reported Sergeant Kim Tae-hyun. They are preparing to destroy the entire facility. Major Shin watched through his periscope as enemy soldiers positioned heavy weapons aimed directly at the shelter's main entrance. Inside, 50,000 innocent people waited for death while he had the firepower to stop it, but not the legal authorization to act. Sir, we could eliminate the entire Valkyrie ground force with a single missile strike, his weapons officer pleaded. The shelter's defensive systems were designed to protect against exactly this kind of attack. Major Shin looked at his authorization codes. For 2 centuries, human military forces had followed strict engagement protocols designed to prevent escalation, but those protocols had never anticipated an enemy willing to massacre defenseless civilians while cameras recorded every moment. On Earth, President Kwon Da-yoon sat in the Global Defense Council's emergency session. The screens around her showed the destruction of New Seoul in real time. Military advisors, diplomatic experts, and government leaders from every human world waited for her decision. General Im Sung-jae, the highest-ranking officer in human space, presented the military options. Madam President, our forces can end this attack within hours. The Valkyrie fleet is no match for our actual military capabilities, but once we begin full-scale military operations, the psychological and cultural changes we have studied will begin. Admiral Ryu Min-jung added her assessment from the Space Forces. Our hidden fleets are ready for deployment. We have weapons that General Vorak cannot imagine, but using them means crossing thresholds we have avoided for generations. Dr. Choi Miran appeared on the main screen from her research station. Her face was pale with exhaustion and fear. Madame President, the psychological monitoring stations are showing unprecedented readings. Human military personnel throughout our territory are experiencing the mental changes we predicted. The Prometheus effect is beginning. What exactly does that mean, Doctor? President Kwon asked. It means human soldiers are starting to think differently. Their strategic planning is becoming more aggressive. Their tactical innovations are accelerating. Most concerning, their emotional responses to enemy actions are shifting from restraint to something else. President Kwon studied the reports from New Seoul. The casualty numbers climbed higher every minute. The Valkyrie were not just attacking a human world. They were committing genocide while the galaxy watched. The shelter is under direct bombardment, reported General Im. Major Shin is requesting immediate authorization to use full defensive capabilities. If we do not act now, 50,000 civilians will die in the next 10 minutes. The president looked around the room at the faces of humanity's leaders. Each person understood what this decision meant. For 200 years, humans had chosen diplomacy over warfare because they knew what warfare did to their species. They had built their entire civilization around avoiding the psychological changes that combat brought to human minds. But 50,000 innocent people were about to die. Dr. Choi, what are the projected consequences if we authorize full military response? President Kwon asked. Unknown, Madam President. We have models and theories. But humanity has never engaged in large-scale warfare since we learned about our own psychological responses to combat. We would be entering uncharted territory. President Kwon closed her eyes and thought of the children in that shelter. Then she opened them and made the decision that would change galactic history. Release Prometheus protocols, she said quietly. Authorization code Alpha 77 Omega. All human military forces are authorized for full combat operations. She paused, looking at each person in the room. And may whatever we become be able to forgive us for what we are about to do. Throughout human space, Systems that had been dormant for centuries came online. Ships emerged from hidden facilities. Weapons that existed only in classified files began their activation sequences. And in the minds of human soldiers from Earth to the outer colonies, something ancient and terrible began to awaken. On New Sol, Major Shin received his new authorization codes and felt something change in his thinking. The restraint that had defined his entire military career disappeared, replaced by a clarity of purpose he had never experienced before. All weapons free, he commanded. Eliminate the threat. The galaxy was about to learn why humans had tried so desperately to avoid this moment. The awakening. The transformation began within hours of the Prometheus authorization. Across human space, military personnel who had spent their entire careers following peaceful protocols suddenly found their minds working in ways they had never experienced. Strategic thinking that had been suppressed for generations emerged like water, breaking through a dam, fleet. Marshal Yang Seung-hwan stood in the command center of the previously unknown Earth Defense Station, Omega. The facility had been hidden beneath the Pacific Ocean for over a century, waiting for the day humanity might need to remember how to fight. Around him, officers who had been secretly training for warfare their entire lives worked with an efficiency that surprised even themselves. Marshal, all Phase 1 objectives have been completed, reported Captain Lee Min-soo. Velkari command structures in the New Sol system have been compromised. We have complete intelligence on their fleet dispositions, command codes, and psychological profiles of their senior officers. Yang Seung-hwan studied the tactical displays with eyes that seemed to see patterns invisible just days before. The Prometheus effect was changing more than just human military thinking. It was unlocking cognitive abilities that had been dormant since humanity chose the path of peace. Excellent work, Captain. Dr. Park Eugene, what is the status of the Psychological Warfare Division? Dr. Park looked up from her analysis computers. She had been studying alien psychology for 20 years, but only now did she understand why human minds were so uniquely suited to understanding and manipulating other species. Marshal, we have developed targeted disinformation campaigns for the Velkari command structure. Their psychological profile shows critical weaknesses in their trust relationships and command hierarchy. Implement immediately, Yang ordered. I want General Vorak's subordinates questioning his leadership within 12 hours. What the galaxy was witnessing was not just a military response, but the emergence of capabilities that humanity had kept hidden even from themselves. The ships emerging from concealment were not retrofitted civilian vessels, but purpose-built warships designed with technology decades ahead of anything other species possessed. Admiral Kim Hye-young commanded the Ghost Fleet, 73 vessels that had appeared to the galaxy as simple cargo ships for over 50 years. Now their true nature was revealed as advanced stealth warships equipped with weapon systems that made Velkari technology look primitive by comparison. All Ghost ships report ready for combat operations, her tactical officer announced. Targets have been identified and locked. Awaiting your orders, Admiral. Admiral Kim looked at the displays showing Velkari positions throughout their empire. Each ship had been tracking potential targets for decades, building detailed intelligence profiles while pretending to deliver trade goods. The level of preparation was staggering even to the humans implementing it. Begin Phase 2, she commanded. But remember, we are not fighting to defeat the Velkari. We are fighting to ensure they can never threaten anyone again. The technology revealed during humanity's military awakening shocked even their own scientists. Dr. Jung Sang-hoon had spent his career developing theoretical weapon systems, never expecting them to be built. Now he watched as his designs were deployed with devastating effectiveness. The quantum disruptors are performing beyond projected parameters, he reported to the Defense Council. Velkari shields and armor are completely ineffective against human weapons. Their ships are being disabled rather than destroyed exactly as planned. This distinction was crucial. Other species fought to win battles. Humans fought to end the possibility of future conflict. Every Velkari ship captured rather than destroyed provided intelligence about their entire military structure. Every officer taken prisoner revealed more about their species' psychology and weaknesses. General Vorak received reports of the human military response with growing alarm. In less than 48 hours, his mighty empire was being systematically dismantled by forces he had not known existed. Worse, the humans were doing it with a level of strategic coordination that defied his understanding of warfare. How is this possible? He demanded of his intelligence chief. Our scouts reported minimal human defenses. Where did these ships come from? How do they know our command codes and fleet positions? The truth was more unsettling than he could imagine. Humanity had been preparing for this possibility since their first contact with other species. Not out of aggression, but out of the recognition that their own psychology made them uniquely dangerous when threatened. Commander, Yujisu presented the most disturbing revelation to General Vorak during his demanded meeting. Aboard the human flagship Indomitable, she was a small woman with quiet eyes, but when she spoke about warfare, her voice carried the weight of centuries of human conflict. General, you misunderstood humanity's peaceful nature, she explained calmly. We do not avoid war because we are weak. We avoid war because we know exactly what we become when we fight. The meeting took place in Admiral Won Kyungmin's ready room. The Velkari general had requested an audience after realizing that his empire was being taken apart piece by piece with minimal human losses. What he found was not the weak species he had expected, but representatives of a civilization that approached warfare with terrifying competence. Your military response is impossible, Vorak protested. No species can coordinate such complex operations across multiple star systems simultaneously. Your ships appeared from nowhere. Your intelligence about our operations is complete and detailed. This level of preparation requires decades of planning. Admiral Wan nodded calmly. Correct. We have been preparing for potential galactic warfare since we first left Earth. Not because we wanted war, but because our psychological studies showed that if we were ever forced to fight, we would need to end the conflict quickly and completely. Dr. Seo Dongwook, humanity's senior strategic analyst, activated the holographic displays that showed the true scope of human military preparation. Star charts revealed bases and facilities that the Galactic Council had never known existed. Ship classifications showed vessels that were officially decommissioned, but had actually been held in secret reserve. We developed complete victory scenarios against every known galactic civilization within 6
months of first contact, Dr. Seo explained.
Not because we plan to attack them, but because strategic analysis is how human minds naturally respond to potential threats. General Vorak stared at the displays in growing horror. You have war plans against everyone? Your allies, neutral species, everyone? Of course, Admiral Wan replied. It is what human minds do. We see potential threats and we plan responses. The difference is that we chose never to implement those plans unless absolutely necessary. The most chilling revelation came when Dr. Seo showed the Velkari general the projected casualties for his empire if the conflict continued. The numbers were not estimates but detailed calculations based on human historical warfare patterns. If this conflict escalates to Level 5 threat assessment, our projected timeline for complete Velkari military defeat is 16 days, Dr. Seo stated calmly. Projected civilian casualties in your empire would approach 80%. Infrastructure destruction would be total. Velkari civilization would effectively cease to exist. That is genocide, Vorak whispered. No, Commander Yu corrected quietly. That is what happens when humans fight a war they believe threatens their survival. We do not set out to commit genocide, but our warfare psychology does not recognize concepts like proportional response or limited objectives. We fight until the threat is completely eliminated. General Vorak looked around the room at the faces of humanity's military leaders. They showed no anger, no hatred, no desire for revenge. Instead, he saw something far more terrifying. The calm professionalism of a species that had turned warfare into a science. What do you want? He asked finally. Admiral Wan leaned forward slightly. Complete and immediate cessation of hostilities. Withdrawal of all Velkari forces from conquered territories. Reparations for damages caused to human colonies. And most importantly, your word that the Velkari Empire will never again threaten human lives. And if I refuse? Then we continue with Phase 3 of our military response, Dr. Seo replied, which involves the systematic destruction of every Velkari military asset in the galaxy. We estimate completion in 6 days. The room fell silent as General Vorak realized that he was not negotiating with equals. He was receiving terms from a species that had already won a war he was only beginning to understand they were fighting. The terrible truth. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so quiet. Representatives from dozens of species sat in stunned silence as Director Han Myung of the Prometheus Project prepared to reveal the complete truth about humanity's nature. The destruction of the Velkari, Empire's military power in less than a week, had shaken every civilization's understanding of galactic politics. Chancellor Nira's crystal form seemed dimmer than usual as she called the emergency session to order. Director Han, the Council requires explanation of recent human military actions. The level of coordination and effectiveness displayed exceeds our understanding of your species' capabilities. Director. Han was a woman in her 50s with silver hair and eyes that had seen too much truth about her own kind. She stood before the assembled aliens knowing that her words would change galactic civilization forever. Honored delegates, what you witnessed was not the full extent of human military capability, she began quietly. It was humanity fighting while still trying to maintain restraint. What I'm about to tell you represents the most classified information in human space. The chamber's main display activated, showing images from Earth's ancient history, battlefields from thousands of years ago, weapons that could destroy cities, conflicts that had consumed entire continents. When humans first reached the stars and encountered other species, we made a disturbing discovery about ourselves, Director Han continued. We learned that our development as a species had been fundamentally different from everyone else in the galaxy. Dr. Kim Woo-jin appeared on the secondary display, broadcasting from the Human Psychology Research Institute on Earth. Behind him, walls lined with classified studies and reports represented centuries of self-examination. Every species we have encountered developed civilization through cooperation, adaptation, or environmental pressure, Dr. Kim explained. Humans developed through warfare. Constant, brutal, innovative warfare that lasted for thousands of years. The display changed to show comparative analyses between human and alien societies. Charts and graphs revealed patterns that had been hidden from the galactic community for over a century. Other species fight defensive wars, Dr. Kim continued. They develop military capabilities to protect what they have, then return to peaceful activities when the threat ends. Humans are different. We do not just fight wars. We evolve through them. Ambassador Lee Hyun, who had spent years carefully hiding this truth during diplomatic negotiations, spoke from his position in the chamber. The peaceful nature that other species observe in humanity is not our natural state. It is a conscious choice we made after we discovered what our natural state actually is. Director Han activated another set of displays, showing classified research from the early days of human space exploration. When humans first encountered alien civilizations, several conflicts occurred. In each case, human forces achieved victory with disturbing ease. More troubling, human military effectiveness improved dramatically during these conflicts. The Chitrak delegate's mandibles clicked nervously as he processed this information. Are you saying humans have been hiding their true military power for centuries? Not hiding, Director Han corrected. Suppressing. There is a difference. We did not build secret weapons to deceive you. We built them because human psychology cannot help but prepare for warfare. Then we chose not to use them. Professor Yoon Taek joined the briefing from his office on Earth. The elderly historian looked tired, as if carrying this knowledge had worn him down over the years. The studies conducted during humanity's early expansion revealed disturbing patterns, Professor Yoon reported. Human strategic thinking does not recognize limited warfare. When humans perceive an existential threat, their societies undergo rapid psychological changes that make them incredibly effective at combat, but change their fundamental nature. The display showed brain scans and psychological profiles of human military personnel during different conflict scenarios. The changes were dramatic and consistent across all test subjects. Level 1 conflicts produce normal military responses, Professor Yoon explained. Level 2 conflicts result in improved tactics and innovation. Level 3 conflicts cause humans to develop new forms of warfare entirely. He paused, his expression growing more grave. Level 4 and 5 conflicts represent threats to human survival. At these levels, human psychology changes in ways that concern us greatly. Individual humans begin thinking like parts of a larger organism. Innovation accelerates beyond anything we have seen. Most disturbing, humans stop seeing enemies as individuals and start seeing them as problems to be solved permanently. The Morlock representative croaked in alarm. What does solved permanently mean? Dr. Kim answered from his laboratory. It means humans fighting for survival do not seek victory. They seek the complete elimination of the threat's ability to ever threaten them again. This often results in the destruction of entire civilizations not through malice, but through the logical conclusion of human military thinking. Director Han moved to stand closer to the assembled delegates. This is why humanity desperately avoids warfare. Not because we are weak, but because we know what we become when we fight. The recent conflict with the Velkari Empire was humanity at Level 3 threat assessment. We were still holding back. Holding back? Chancellor Nera's voice rang with disbelief. Your forces dismantled the most powerful military empire in the galaxy in 6 days. Yes, Director Han replied simply. And we did it while still trying to preserve Velkari lives and infrastructure. At Level 4 or 5, such considerations would disappear entirely. Ambassador Li stood to address the council directly. Every human leader for the past century has been briefed on these studies. We have built our entire civilization around preventing the psychological changes that warfare brings to our species. Our diplomatic efforts are not signs of weakness. They are desperate attempts to save our enemies from ourselves. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The Chitrak delegate was the first to speak. You are saying that human peace negotiations are actually attempts to protect other species from human military capabilities? Correct, Director Han confirmed. We have studied our own history extensively. When humans believe their survival is threatened, they do not stop fighting until the threat is completely eliminated. This has happened repeatedly throughout our history on Earth. Professor Yoon activated new displays showing the aftermath of humanity's early space conflicts. The 3 minor alien civilizations that humans encountered during our expansion period no longer exist as independent entities. Not because we sought to destroy them, but because human military psychology does not recognize concepts like proportional response when facing existential threats. Dr. Kim added his analysis from Earth. The Velkari situation represents the first time in over 2 centuries that humanity has engaged in large-scale warfare. Even now, we are monitoring human military personnel for signs of further psychological escalation. The concern is that continued fighting could push us toward Level 4 threat assessment. What would happen at Level 4? Asked the Morlack representative. The human delegation exchanged glances before Director Han answered. Level 4 represents a fundamental shift in human psychology. At this level, humans begin to see the entire galaxy as a potential threat. Military planning shifts from defensive to preemptive. The goal becomes not just victory, but the prevention of all future conflicts through overwhelming superiority. She paused to let this sink in. Level 5 has never occurred in human history, but our models suggest it would represent the complete militarization of human society. Every human would become part of the war effort. Innovation would focus entirely on military applications. The galaxy would face a species that thinks of nothing but warfare and has the psychological makeup to excel at it. Chancellor Nera's crystal form flickered as she processed this information. Are you saying that humanity could pose a threat to all galactic civilization? We are saying that humanity poses a threat to all galactic civilization every day we exist, Ambassador Li replied quietly. The only thing preventing that threat from manifesting is our choice to remain peaceful, and that choice becomes harder to maintain every time we are forced to fight. General Vorak's surrender had been broadcast throughout the galaxy. His final statement, recorded aboard the human flagship, now took on terrifying new meaning. I have seen what humans become when they stop pretending to be weak. The galaxy should pray they never stop pretending. Director Han activated the final display, showing the post-war reconstruction plans for Velkari territory. This document demonstrates the other side of human psychology. We do not simply destroy our enemies. We rebuild them according to human concepts of civilization. The Velkari Empire will be restructured to prevent future aggression, but its people will be educated, fed, and integrated into galactic society. This is because humans do not fight for conquest or resources, Dr. Kim explained. We fight to eliminate threats. Once a threat is eliminated, we immediately begin working to ensure it never resurfaces. This often involves completely changing the defeated civilization's culture, government, and social structure. The Chitrak delegate clicked his mandibles nervously. You are describing cultural